Hi, I'm Karla Pearce, and in this episode we are joining Kamloops ceramicist Amanda Eccleston in her home studio. We are going to learn all about pottery today, right from wedging the clay to throwing it, right to the very end where we fire it up. So join us, it's going to be a fabulous afternoon.
Okay, so the first thing we did is we wedged the clay. You need to wedge the clay and get it, warm it up basically, because it's been compressed into a cold block for so long. Wedging it warms it up, which makes it more flexible, makes it more plastic, and also gets the bubbles out of it if there's any bubbles, air pockets that might be in there. It also helps to mix the clay up a little bit. Sometimes clay right out of the bag, you don't want to put that on your wheel and throw it right away. You need to really wedge it and to get it mixed up great.
Do a little karate move here.
So we work with Coleman, we're going to work with Coleman Cone 10 porcelain today. And I like to wedge it for about 5 minutes if I'm making a big pot, just to make sure it's really nice and mixed. I had taken art classes in high school and whatnot, but once I took a university level painting class, that is all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be a studio artist. I wanted to be in the studio working all the time. I'm just making stuff all the time, making art all the time. Now, throwing. We're going to take the clay that we've wedged, we're going to make the bottom, give the bottom a little cone shape, and we're going to slap it on the wheel really hard and smack it down a few times. Show it that you're the boss.
Hey, that was graceful. Excellent.
And then we're going to center it first. So we get our hands nice and wet, and we're going to use our hands and we're going to put them into almost a prayer motion, like we're praying, a bit like this. And then we're going to use our palms to really dig into the side of it and the top to center it. We want to make sure it is perfectly centered on the circular wheel.
Right.
Once the clay is centered, then you can start opening it up. So you use your thumb, you dig your thumb right into the middle of it and pull it out, and then you can use your fingers to pinch it. You use your thumb and your middle finger and you pinch it and you slowly bring your hand up. Almost like you're pulling on it, you're pulling it up. You want to keep the consistency of the walls the same thickness the entire way up. You want to make sure the rim isn't too thick and that anything below the rim is too thin. That will collapse it. You also want to make sure your pot doesn't get too wet. If you're throwing for too long, the clay becomes oversaturated with water, and that doesn't matter how big or how small your pot is, it'll just fall down. What happened there is the rim broke off, but what we can do is if the pot, if the rim is wobbly and uneven, you can cut it off with a pointed tool and then just compress the rim and just keep going. You can still salvage your pot that way.
There it is.
Great.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Okay, now get the water out from the middle. So once we have our pot is made on the wheel. I use a rib tool to scrape off the excess slurry that might be on the exterior of it. And then I grab a wire tool and I cut it off the wheel with a wire tool. We then move it. I'll let it sit on the table for a few hours to harden up just a little bit, and then I put it into a damp box, which is just a plastic bin, for about 3 days. As soon as they're done being trimmed, we can start adding all the decorations. We're gonna put coils around the exterior of it and make them into roughly leaves. And then we're going to add spirals, barnacles, and bubbles on top of the leaf. We use liquid clay, which is just the clay that I've mixed with water and made it more of a liquid consistency and not a clay consistency. So we're going to use a paintbrush to just smear that onto the pot. This is how we make the spirals. You roll out a coil of clay in your hands, just a really little one, and you flatten it with your palms, and then you just take the very edge with a finger and you roll it up like you're making a snail. Remember making snails in elementary school out of plasticine? It's basically what I'm doing, but they're flatter. And then once those are made, you paint a little bit of slurry onto the pot where you're going to stick it, and then you stick it right on. I have a very random, chaotic pattern that I like to use. I like to put them into what looks like a natural growth pattern where there's clusters of growth going on. Well, we're going to make the barnacles next. So the barnacles are just a little dot of clay that is pressed onto the end of a paintbrush, squished around a little bit, and then I just dip the end of the barnacle in a little bit of slurry and then attach it to the pot just by pushing it in with the paintbrush.
A logic too.
Then I carve the leaves. The ruffles that we made, I like to make them look like they're a different texture than the cup we put them on. So I take a loop tool and I just start carving. I'll just make carving marks from the top to the bottom of that section. And I'll just carve it so that you can't see any of the mug surface. It's all carved. I just really loved the 3D aspect, and I love working with the glazes on the fired clay. It looks like stone and glass, but it can also imitate real life extremely well. Now these are done. They're going to sit in a damp box for probably another 2 days, but then they're going to go on my drying shelf for 2 weeks. I like to give them a long time to dry, because then there's no risk of them exploding from moisture. But I'll always check them. I'll check to make sure before I even put them in the kiln. If they're cold, it means they're still damp. The first firing you do is called the bisque fire, and it basically just hardens the pot, takes it up to a point where the silica crystallizes, which hardens the piece into something like, it's almost like glass. So now we're going to move on to the glazing. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill in all the little barnacles and spirals with a purple glaze. You really have to get it in there. I've tried dipping before and the glaze won't go right inside. So we're going to use a little dropper, and you're going to feed them like baby birds and fill them right up with the glaze. We're going to use tongs to dip this plate that we're decorating into the blue. And you only have 3 seconds to get it in there and get it out.
That's it! All right! Awesome! Oh, nice!
Awesome.
Okay, wow!
Sometimes the pots will fracture, get cracks on the bottoms. The glaze will run off the pot, and or even during the drying process, the pot will just crack in the one place it shouldn't be cracking in. That is out of your control. I like my pots to look like they're almost like a coral reef themselves. They've been submerged in the ocean or in a lake for years, and there's things growing on them. It's very fantasy-like. I'm not depicting exact species of plankton or coral, but I like them to look like if they were sitting in a coral reef for years, that there is all this growth happening on them. The best part about being a potter is making the perfect teapot. It comes out of the kiln, it's light, it pours beautifully, it handles well, and it's freaking gorgeous.
One of the beautiful things about creating ceramic artwork is that there is a deep connection with the earth, and we have been doing this for a long time, digging up dirt and firing it in very primitive firing situations like a fireplace or a hole in the ground. The first pieces of ceramic art were found around 20,000 years ago, and it predates some of the more fantastic expressions of artwork. So when we're holding a pot or drinking out of a mug or a vessel that is hand created, it's more than just a thing that we're drinking from. It's a connection not only with the artist, but with our humanity. I'm Karla Pearce, and thanks for watching.